Hey, I'm Isabel Bercaw, and when I was 12 years old, I founded a multi-million-dollar bath and body products company called the Bomb Bath. After 5 years of building my own brand, I've discovered a passion for helping young and innovative entrepreneurs tell their stories. Hopefully, you'll be inspired by the guests here on Build-A-Biz and maybe even motivated to start a business of your own. Let's get into it.
This is Build-A-Biz with Isabel Bercaw.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Build-A-Biz. I'm your host, Isabel Bercaw, and today I have a very special guest joining me today. Her name is Gabby Beckford, and she is the travel aficionado who is here to tell us how she made her dream of seeing the world a reality. Gabby, thank you so much for being on Build-A-Biz today.
Hey, Isabel. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm so happy that we were able to get you for a chunk of time because I know that you were always on the road / in the sky / in your next travel destination. So thank you so much for being on.
It's true, but I had to make time. I'm so excited. Like my life is dedicated to helping out young people, and I'm just excited to talk to your audience.
Yeah, seriously. So let's get into it. I think the first question I'd like to bring up to you is just, I think it'd be good for the audience to hear, how did you discover your love for travel in the first place?
Ooh, that's a good question. So actually, my dad was in the military and we traveled a lot when I was younger, and I didn't like it. I thought I didn't like it, at least. I was always going to different schools. I was always the new kid. And I wished that I had, people were like, oh, I have friends of 10 years. I've known her for 5 years, and I didn't have anyone like that. So when I was super young, when I was 8 years old, I didn't like it. But then I got into middle school and high school, and we were in one place for a long time. And I realized I kind of miss that. I kind of miss meeting new people. I kind of miss being in different places and going into airports and just having an adventure. So that's when I realized, oh, okay, maybe I do love traveling. And that's how it started for me.
That's awesome. So, and then you, later on, you decided to then take that love of travel to the next level. So what kind of made you realize that traveling was something that you could incorporate into your everyday life? I know that you were 17 when you were accepted to your first university. So maybe could you tell us how that sort of ties into your whole travel, to your travel love, I guess?
Yeah. So when I was 17, I got accepted to university. It was 1 hour away from my parents' house in Virginia. And I was like, oh, it's not, I kind of thought I would go across the world or across the country at least. And I was like, okay, I'm only an hour away. So that summer, I really wanted to do something like have an adventure or just kind of set myself up to be really positive going into college and not just like, okay, it's an hour away. So I did my first solo trip when I was 17. I went to Iceland. It was incredible. And that's when I realized that people traveled all the time. Like, I mean, I guess I traveled with my dad for his job. So I realized people could travel for their job. But this is the first time I saw people closer to my age traveling, and like the tour guide who led us, I was like, this is his job. He just does this every single day. Like you could kind of make a life out of travel jobs. So that's when I realized like, okay, maybe, because I went into college as a biomedical engineer because that was the safe thing. That's what my parents encouraged me to do. And I liked science, but I just didn't know a job in travel was an option. So that's when I was like, ooh, we got more options.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I can understand that too. You know, like when you're younger, if your family isn't constantly traveling, you probably think like, oh, travel is just, you know, relaxing vacations. But you'd probably seen the other side of it too, which was, you know, at first why maybe travel could be a little bit intimidating, I guess. But it seems that experience then helped you like look forward and say, okay, like I'm used to trying new things. I'm used to being the new girl. So I'm going to go ahead and take that first solo trip when I'm just a teenager, which is really cool.
That's exactly it. And it was hard. It wasn't like, oh, I'll just do this by myself without my parents. It's fine. It was kind of scary. But luckily I did my research beforehand, and I knew that Iceland was a super safe country. I knew I'd be meeting people there. And while it was scary, I knew that it would be fun too. So I just kind of had to get over that like initial, this is crazy, and get there.
Right. That's actually something I was wondering was, you know, like, how did you stay motivated to keep trying new things? Because I feel like, you know, young people are really awesome because they are constantly trying new things. And it seems like you had a bit more of an intense experience with trying new things with your dad moving and then just that adventurous spirit. But what qualities would you say did you most use when you were trying new things, and how can other people implement those qualities into their lives?
That's a good question. That's something I'm asked a lot, actually. And it's hard to describe. I think when we're younger, it's like really young, 4 or 5 years old, we're all super curious. Like you said, we're all super adventurous. And I think the lifestyle I had moving with my family and like being in different places, living in Japan, just completely different cultures, it just kind of made me not lose that. It's kind of like we all have it, and some people lose it when they're in a place too long, or they get too comfortable, or they get expectations of like, this is what my life should be like, right? And I just kind of didn't have to lose my curiosity. So that's a big part of what I do, is trying to be like, we should live for the story. Our lives should be one big adventure, one big story. And that should be like, enjoying our life should be the center of what like the decision making and what we do, and not just, oh, this is probably what I should do. This seems normal. This seems fine. Like, we should think outside the box and make everything we do exciting.
Totally. And I love that you mentioned curiosity too, because when I'm telling my personal story about how I started my bath bomb business, I always tell people, like, I credit a lot of the decisions that I made and a lot of what I was able to do at such a young age to the fact that young people are just by nature very curious, because, you know, we're constantly learning and we're constantly adjusting to our surroundings. And it seems like if you can keep that curiosity, that makes travel very easy, or not easy, I guess. It makes it easier to adjust to your surroundings. And I feel like that's a really good tip that some people can take away.
That's exactly it. And sorry, back to your point of being motivated. That's what motivates me too, is I think one of the things that motivates me most is not being afraid of failure or not being afraid of rejection. Because even if I do fail, if I wanted to start my business and I failed, or if I wanted to go to Iceland and I hated it, at the end of the day, I have a great story and I have great experiences that can help me in the future. So I don't believe in failure. I don't believe in rejection. I think that's what keeps me motivated, is that I'm just not easily demotivated. I like to see how things go. I like to experiment. Maybe that's like the scientist part of me still around. I like to see how things will go. And I'm not afraid if they don't go the way I want to, because I know that everything happens the way it's supposed to.
Totally. So you said, you know, you don't really believe in failure because you look at it more as like a lesson, is what I kind of took away from that. So what are some like obstacles that you had to overcome that taught you lessons? I guess what I'm kind of poking at right now is, you know, I read some of your blog before this interview, and I saw that you do a lot with scholarships. So I'm kind of wondering how you overcame some of those either financial obstacles or even just like maybe like bravery obstacles, and, you know, what are some of the lessons that you learned from overcoming those obstacles?
That's a great question. I have faced a lot of obstacles, but like you said, I see them as lessons. So growing up, both my parents didn't have a ton of money, and that's really why I got into scholarships, because I was like, okay, if we don't have money, how can I get some? Like, it's just that simple. I was like, I need funds to do what I want to do. How can I get them? And I didn't really want to work the traditional like high school job in Forever 21, or I did work in an ice cream shop, but I was like, there has to be something else out there. So that's where that curiosity came in. I just started asking questions. I went to my guidance counselor and was like, what are my options? I don't want to go into debt over college. And I'm just really blessed that I had those thoughts early. I was just like, okay, what can I do to not go into debt? What can I do that someone might give me money? And my guidance counselor was like, do you know what scholarships are? And the second she said that word, my life changed. I started Googling. I started looking up books in the library, literally in the library. I was like, there's money out there that people want to give you? Yup, that's what I'm looking for. And I just went crazy with it. So financial obstacles, luckily I had that curiosity. Motivationally, like I said, I really just tried to see, even when I do get down. It's not like I am rejected from the thing I've been dreaming from most, and I'm like, that's totally fine, it's a lesson. No, I still get sad like everybody else, but I really tried to see the big picture, like, okay, this is temporary. There's more things to come. And that's really what it comes down to, is like being curious and tenacious, and just kind of, the most important thing is knowing what you want. That's a thing a lot of people struggle with, is I'll be like, okay, so what do you want to get out of this? Or why are you doing this? And they're like, I actually don't know if I could write it down. You have to be able to write it down, know what you want. And the bumps and the waves along the way are just part of your journey. But you ultimately know that you're doing what you're doing because you want to get somewhere.
Yes, a little bit of flight turbulence, one could say.
Exactly. And I like turbulence. People are terrified, but I think it's fun. So same thing with life. Like, okay, it's a little turbulence, but it's your perspective. You can see it as fun and nice.
Okay, honestly, that's so crazy that you say that, because me too. I feel like it kind of mixes things up, as long as it's not too crazy. But I'm like, I think it's getting my blood flowing a little bit on this flight. But
Exactly. A little nerves is okay, but it makes it interesting.
yeah, for sure. So I really liked that you mentioned that like it's okay to be sad, because I think a lot of people when they're growing up, they think like, oh my gosh, I have to do everything perfectly. But then sometimes people come out and say, hey, it's okay to fail, like you just said. And then also like it's okay to be sad, because if you get rejected from something, and I feel like that's a very important lesson to learn, because if you feel sad when something bad happens, like you get it out of your system, I guess. And I feel like that sadness almost leads to a different, better emotion, which would then be curiosity, or one can maybe even call it ambition. And it seems like you were a little bit like upset that you had to move a ton when you were younger, but then you sort of took that idea of being very adaptive to your environment and ran with it. And I really admire that. So that's super cool. I also love that you wanted to, ask a lot of questions, because I feel like that's a very underrated method to becoming like a super entrepreneurial, or just like adaptive. Again, I'm going to use that word, adaptive person, because obviously I see that in what you're doing, and it's super cool. And I feel like people can definitely take that away from this interview and just, try their best to be independent and go with that. So that's super cool.
Exactly. I actually always say that. People ask me, what's your number one tip? Like, you started your business when you were so young. You're so successful now. What's your number one tip? And I always say questions in books are the cheat codes. In my books, I just mean learning. So it could be YouTube videos. It could be TikToks. These days, TikToks are amazing. But asking questions and Googling things are the cheat codes, because you get to use someone else's experience and just kind of borrow it. And you don't have to do all the trials and errors they did, or you don't have to figure it out by yourself, which takes a lot of time and like emotional effort. If you can just find a mentor or find someone you can ask questions to, an expert, and they're nice enough to like impart that on you, you're skipping like years of trying and failing. Like, so ask questions and read lots of books.
I love that. I know you mentioned your TikTok. Want to tell us a little bit about like the videos that you like filming most on your TikTok? And if you want to give a shameless plug, I know you have a ton of followers on there, so I'm sure people will love to see your content.
Hey, yeah, if you're listening to this and you recognize the username PaxLight, that's me. I love to share what I call paid travel ops, which I call PTO, because I think it's like funny that like, oh, I'm taking my PTO, but I'm only 13. It's actually a paid travel opportunity, not like time off from your job. But I share them. It's like paid scholarships, paid internships, paid fellowships for all ages, middle school to like your mom's age. Any age can take these opportunities and see the world with them. That's how I was able to. I won a $20,000 scholarship when I was in college. I studied abroad, quote unquote, when I was like out of college, when I was working my engineering job. I went to Korea for a week. They paid for it. And people are always like, how do you do that? And I'm like, this is the cheat code for me. This is why I love to do what I do, because there are so many opportunities out there, especially in travel specifically, which is what I love. And people just don't know about them. And that's actually part of the story I tell when I won my first scholarship, is that I found out I only won it because I was just one of the people who applied to it. They're like, yeah, we didn't have enough people who applied. So like, here you go. So from that day on, I've been like, you just need to know about it. So that's what the TikTok's about. I'll just share them. And I'm like, if you just knew about it, I'm sure you would apply. So here it is. And people do.
That's awesome. It's like a public service announcement to try to help people see the world just like you did.
That's exactly it. I'm like, did you know this exists? And it shocks me every single day. Maybe a video will get 1 million views and they'll be like, I didn't know this exists. And I'm like, I swear this got 1 million views last time, but there's just so many people in the world. I could never my goal is to like make everyone aware.
I love it. And, out of those, million people that see it, probably not very many people will actually go out and apply, but they might think it's kind of cool. And, it's almost like the more people you can reach, the more people you can spark that curiosity inside of. So it's awesome, but then there's still a lot of opportunity out there, because, there's, like you mentioned, there's a lot of scholarship money out there that just goes undistributed. So that's super cool that you're spreading awareness about that aspect of things.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So, Gabby, we're actually going to take a super quick music break, but when we return from the break, we will continue to talk about how you discovered your love of travel. And also, while we're on this music break, everyone take the time to go check out Gabby's TikTok. Like she mentioned, it is Pax Light, spelled Packs, and then light, Light. All right, everybody, welcome back from the music break. If you're just joining me now, my name is Isabel Bercaw, your host on Build-A-Biz, and I'm here with Gabby Beckford, and she is the founder of the Pax Light blog, and she also has a really popular TikTok, which we were talking about before the music break, and she was telling us how she loves to spread the word about lots of scholarships that you can get.
Another thing that I really like is that, you're making a point, which is like you don't have to be a gazillionaire is what I call it to be able to travel, and I feel like that's something that a lot of people will put limits on themselves with, no matter what it is in life, like, oh, I don't have a ton of money right now, or, oh, I'm just starting out and I'm unable to complete my dream because of financial burden, which, to an extent that is an issue. And I think that it's easier said than done, saying like, oh, I'm going to find, an initial investment, I'm going to scour the internet for scholarships. So it's cool that you're making it a little bit easier for people to find those resources. But I also think that it's cool because, people can really do anything, with whatever financial position that they're in these days. It takes obviously like a little bit of luck, but I sometimes I look back to my own business experience. We literally started with an $150 investment from our mom. And we bought all the ingredients to go to our art fair. And it truly is like a loan slash, it would be more of a loan because she gave us $150 and then we paid her back at the end of the 2-day art fair with some money to spare. And then with that money, we went and bought more ingredients and sold more bath bombs. So it's just a good example of just asking questions like you mentioned and being smart with the money that you do have, and then maybe also just taking advantage of the opportunities that present themselves, and kind of pushing aside that fear of failure, which I think is a theme that you continue to bring up in your own story, which is super cool.
Exactly. I try to tell people when I share my story that I maybe get 10% of the opportunities I applied to, whether they're scholarships or like brand partnerships with work, anything. I maybe get like a small fraction of that. I don't want them to think that everything is hunky-dory easy. Like, oh yeah, I'm so lucky when you get where I am, it'll be easy too. I'm still failing every single day. And I actually have a thing I call like the 50 failure challenge where I want people just to attempt things. And if it doesn't work out, it's okay. Like the goal, quote unquote, of the challenge is to fail. But what people actually realize is that the more they go into it expecting to fail, the more they'll actually be successful. And they're like, oh, when I went into it expecting to win and I didn't, it made me really sad. But when I went into it and I said, failure is okay, actually, I expected it's not a bad thing, then they're really excited and like gracious for the wins. So I try to tell people every day, it's not that I'm winning every single thing I'm doing. It's just that I'm tenacious and that I'm applying to so many things. Like I'm open to every opportunity in life. And yeah, it's exactly what you said. It's all perspective. Like the glass half full thing, like, okay, your glass is half empty or it's half full. It really depends how you look at it.
Yeah, totally. I love it. So I'm very curious to know, one, where are you posted up right now? And then number two, if you could get on a flight tomorrow, let's say, where would you go next?
So right now I'm in Mexico City. I was in Dubai for the past 3 months. And then I went home for my grandma's 80th birthday, and now I'm in Mexico for the next month. So I'm loving it here. The weather's great. And if I could fly anywhere right now, I might go to Australia because they're so locked down with the pandemic, but also they're locked down because they're super safe right now. So if I could go like hang out with a kangaroo and kind of relax, that would be great.
I love it. And I love that. I know you mentioned earlier to me before we got on this call that you really don't have a home. Like the world is kind of your home, which I think is I'm a little bit jealous of. Maybe someday I'll have to take the leap and just go for it and take a couple months to just travel. I think that'd be super cool.
It's really cool and it's really like empowering, especially as a young woman and a woman of color. Like I think a lot of young people, women, like whoever you want to say, they don't, it's really easy for us to like want to do things for our parents or want to do things for our friends or want to do things for whoever we're with and like give ourselves away. But traveling solo is really cool because you're like, you wake up and you can be like, okay, I want to stay in bed all day, and no one will tell you you can't. Or you're like, I want to go eat cake for lunch, and no one will tell you can't. It's really cool, especially to do that around the world. I really suggest everyone just try it out. Even if it's just your next town, just go there by yourself when you're old enough and when it's safe enough. And just be like, oh, I can do whatever I want. It's really cool.
Do you have plans for where you're going after Mexico City?
Well, that's one of the most common questions I get too. And people are always shocked when I say, yeah, I don't have plans. Like, I don't make plans. And they're like, Gabby, how do you do that? First of all, how do you do that, like, logistically? Like, don't you have to have somewhere you're going next? And then they're like, how do you do that mentally? Like, doesn't it scare you to not have anything set in the future or whatever? But again, as the queen of opportunities who lets kind of things come to her, I have a general outline of what I might do, but I really let life, like, come to me and show me cool things that I could be doing. So the number one thing is that I am financially stable enough to have this freedom. It's not like I could be living on pennies and being like, I don't care. I'm going to just find out where I'm going to sleep tomorrow. Having financial stability is important. So that's what I focus on first. But now that I have that, I can say, like, this morning I had a email from the Republic of Georgia, which is way out in Dubai, near Dubai again. They were like, hey, can you come here next month? And I'm like, see, now my plans are set. So this morning I didn't have plans and now I do. So that I'm going to Republic of Georgia.
No way. That's so fun. I love your vibe, you know, that these opportunities come to you. I almost feel like that's a way of, like, manifesting. You're not worrying too much about how you're going to get from which place to which place, but you just kind of go with the vibe and you trust the process, which is super cool.
That is exactly it. I always say I'm manifesting and people are like, oh gosh, she's hippy dippy. And it's kind of that, but it's really not. It's kind of like I said earlier, you just have to know what you want. And I have a journal where I write down what I want every day. And it doesn't have to be like a specific location or whatever. It can just be like, I want to be somewhere warm and happy. And I say that all the time because I hate the cold. And now here I am. So you just have to know where you want to go in life or what you want, and kind of the universe will conspire with you. I promise.
I love it. I totally admire your vibe, Gabby. I so appreciate you coming here on Build-A-Biz. Unfortunately, this is all the time we have left today, but I wish you amazing luck on all of your travels, and thank you again.
Thank you so much for letting me share my message. It's been so fun.
Of course. Thank you. Okay, so everybody, make sure you follow Gabby at Pax Light is her TikTok and her Instagram. There you can find some links to her blog, which is super fun to check out. And also she gives a lot of great advice on how you can travel as well. Also follow me at Isabel.Bercaw, where I'll be posting weekly updates about who will be the next guest on Build-A-Biz. Thank you so much for listening.